Okay, class, picking up where we left off at, I said we initially didn't have enough room. And as you see, I was able to substitute in the values here. Our P is 6,000. We have 1 plus. Our rate is 4.5%, which is 0.045. And our time is 9 months, which we know we do months and years, so it'd be 9/12. So now we have our A is equal to, we still have our 6,000. Now we have to do what's inside the parentheses next. 0.045 times 9/12. We could put this 0.045 over 1 and multiply. Now, when we multiply our numerator, we have 0.045 times 9, which would give us 0.405. And that'll be all over 12. So now we will have 6,000, and we'll have 1 plus 0.405 all over 12. So when we put that in our calculator, 1 plus 0.405, and divide that by 12. And that would give us a long decimal. So what we need to do is this here. We need to change this 1 into an improper fraction, or improper fraction. So this 1 we could write as 12 over 12. So this would be 12 over 12 plus 0.405. Okay, so we have 0.405 all over 12. Now we have the same denominator, so we can add them. So we have 6,000 times, it'll be 12.405 all divided by 12. Now, we will put 6,000 over 1, and we put this in our calculator. 6,000 times 12.405 is equal to 74,430, and that's all over 12. Now if we divide this by 12, this will give us a future value of $6,202.50. And that will be our final answer here. Now we come here to B. Same formula. We have A is equal to P times 1 plus RT. So A is equal to, our principal is $24,000. Our rate is 8.5%, which would be 0.085. And our time is 6 years. So now, when we put this in a calculator, 0.085 times 6 will give us 0.51. So we add $24,000 times 1 plus 0.51. So we have A is equal to 24,000 times 1.51. Now we multiply this in our calculator, and that will give us $36,240. So your future value is $36,240. And that is your final answer. Now, we go on to the next page. It says, example, loan of $1,060 has been made at 6.5% for 3 months. Find the loan's future value. So we know it's A is equal to P times 1 plus RT. So we have A is equal to, our P is 1,060. And then we will have 1 plus, our rate is 0.065. And our time, 3 months, wrote as a year, is 3 over 12. So we have A is equal to, still have our 1060. We have to go inside the parentheses here. So it'll be 1 plus, now we have to take this 0.065 times 3/12. So we'll put this over 1. And our numerator, we have 0.065 times 3. Our numerator will be 0.195. And 1 times 12 is 12. Now we'll have A is equal to $1,060. And we'll change this 1 to 12 over 12 plus 0.195 over 12. Now we can combine them. So we will have $1,060 times this will give us 12.195 all over 12. Now we'll put a 1 under this 1,060, and 1,060 times 12.195 will give us a numerator of $12,926.70 all over 12. Now we would take this value and divide it by 12. And our final answer is going to be an approximate. It's going to be approximately $1,077.23. And that is our final answer. Now we go back up to the next example. We have $6,000 is borrowed for 30 months. At the end of the 30 months, $6,500 is to be paid to the lender. What is the interest rate? So now let's take a look at this. We have A is equal to principal times 1 plus RT. Okay, class, looking at our next problem here, we have $6,000 is borrowed for 30 months. At the end of the 30 months, $6,500 is to be paid to the lender. What is the interest rate? Okay, now we substitute in, we have our future value, which is $6,500. We substitute in for A. Our principal is $6,000. And we have 1 plus RT. 1 plus, we don't know what the interest rate is. And our T is 30 over 12. Because remember, we're doing it in a year. So now, our next step will be, we will divide each side by 6,000. And this will leave 6,500 over 6,000. And then these 6,000 will simplify each other out. And you'll be left with 1 plus R times 30 over 12. Now, our next step is we will subtract 1 on both sides. And we will have 6,500 over 6,000 minus 1 equals R times 30 over 12. Now remember, we want to get R by itself. So we will multiply each side by the reciprocal of 30 over 12, which will give us 12 over 30. Now, this 30 over 12 and 12 over 30 simplifies out and leave you R. Now we come inside of this parenthesis, 6,500 over 6,000 gives you a fraction of 13 over 12 when you simplify this out. Minus, we would change this 1 to 12 over 12 so we could subtract this fraction. So we would have 13 twelfths minus 12 over 12, which is 1/12. So now we will have 12 over 30 times 1 over 12. These 12s will simplify each other out. And this will leave us 1 over 30. Now, our next step, which we will have to do, is this here. So we had a slight technical difficulty there. But these 12 simplify out and leave you 1 over 30. Now 1 over 30 when you simplify that, change it to a decimal, that will give you approximately 3.3%, which will be your interest rate. Now, we scroll down here to the next problem. It says you borrowed $2,500 from a friend and promised to pay back $2,655 in 6 months. What simple interest will you pay? So we have A is equal to P times 1 plus RT. So our A is 2,655 equals 2,500 times 1 plus R times 6 over 12. Now we need to divide each side by 2,500. And what we will be left with is 2,655 over 2,500, and it equals 1 plus R times 1/2. So we will subtract 1 on both sides. And what we will end up with is this here. We will have 2,655 over 2,500 minus 1 is equal to R times 1/2. Now, 2,655 over 2,500, you could divide both by 5. And this will give you 531 over 500 minus, we will change this 1 so it will have a fraction with the same denominator. So this 1 will become 500 over 500, and that equals R times 1/2. Now, 531 minus 500 is 31, so it'd be 31 over 500. And over here, we want to get rid of this 1/2 off of the R. So we multiply each side by the reciprocal, which is 2. Now, we can make this 2 over 1. 2 times 31 is 62, and 1 times 500 is 500. And if we make this 2 over 1, 1/2 times 2 over 1 is 1, and 1 times R is R. And when we put this in the calculator, we come out with 12.4% as our rate of interest. And that is the final answer. Now we come to the next problem. It says $6,000 is needed for a purchase in 5 years. How much needs to be invested at 4% interest to have $6,000 at the end of 5 years? So we have our formula here. A equals P times 1 plus RT. So we will have 6,000, which is the future value, is equal to P. We don't know what our P is. 1 plus our interest rate is 0.04, and the years is 5. So we'll take 0.04 times 5, which gives us 0.20. And we will have 1 plus 0.20, which is 1.20. So now we'll have 6,000 equal P times 1.20. We want to get P by itself, so we'll divide each side by 1.20. So we will have 6,000 divided by 1.20 equals P. 6,000 divided by 1.20 will give us $5,000. So $5,000 is your principal or your present value that you would need to end up with $6,000 after 5 years at 4% interest. Now we have our next example. It says $3,000 is invested at 3.5% simple interest for 1 year. Find the loan's future value. So we have this same formula. And we need to find A, but our principal is 3,000, and we will have 1 plus, our rate will be 0.035, and our time is 1. So we multiply these two values, 0.035 times 1, which will give us 0.035, and 1 plus this value give us 1.035. We would take 3,000 times 1.035, and that would give us $3,105. Now we go to the next problem. It says $500 is borrowed for 6 months. At the end of the 6 months, $540 is to be paid to the lender. What is the interest rate? So we will use this same future value formula, and we will have our A, which is 540, our principal is 500, and we will have 1 plus R times 6 over 12, as this is 6 out of 12 months. Now we will simplify that 6 over 12 to 1/2. And then we would divide each side here by 500. So we will have 540 over 500 is equal to 1 plus R times 1/2. Now, our next step would be